story that we're all a part of together, and we're talking about it. So it's something that we're doing together, not just as isolated individuals out there, but we're doing it together as part of God's people. All right, the other rhythm is weekly worship with the church. Why would I mention that as part of the catechumenate? We need, as Christians, to worship with the church every Sunday. And if there are obstacles in the way, we should do our best to try and move things around so that we can either attend or watch online. And if this isn't already your regular pattern, then for the catechumenate, and you say, I want to do the catechumenate, for the next 14 weeks, try to not miss. Because this is an apprenticeship with Jesus, right? Like, this is all about all of life, about centering our entire life around God. And so to worship on Sunday isn't something that's like an added-on extra or like a nice bonus if we don't have anything else going on. It's not something that should be irregular. And this is part of our life with Jesus. So if it's not something that is an every Sunday thing, seek to make it this way, at least for 14 weeks. Try it out to see how that goes and see what kind of effect it might have in your life. The other rhythm is that we're going to have a weekend retreat as part of the catechumenate. Now, we're not really going anywhere. We're just going to be here, and it'll be on a Friday night, Saturday morning kind of thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Scripture, and it's going to be like reading Scripture with Jesus, or Christ-centered reading of Scripture. And it's probably going to be, I'm thinking, like the October 3rd and 4th. That's the Friday and Saturday that we're looking at doing it. And that's going to give us a lot of time to sort of dive deep into one aspect of following Jesus and reading Scripture, something that would be harder to cover in 1 hour period. So this is going to give us a chunk of time to really go through Scripture. And what does it look like to read Scripture with Jesus' eyes? And then the next aspect of our apprenticeship is service, that we're going to find ways to love our neighbors in word and deed. And this is a little bit tricky in a pandemic, but, it's interesting. It's like the pandemic has pushed us out into our community more than we ever have. So it seems like the pandemic isn't as detrimental to the church when it comes to going out, because of the food box program. We've gotten to know neighbors, and the stories that we've heard, or even just some of the stories we've heard on Sunday mornings, and I'm sure there are more, it's amazing to hear what God is doing in this time when you'd think that it might be really difficult to reach out. So what we'll do through the catechumenate is in the triads, we're going to try and be intentional about blessing our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors around the corner or the street, whatever it might be. And the idea with this is, and there'll be questions that'll come up that you'll get about what this will, that'll be prompted for you in your triad, that you'll be able to continually remember and keep it on the forefront of your mind. We talked about when Paul was sent off as a missionary, they asked him to not forget the poor. And Paul was like, that's the very thing I was eager to do. We want to remember, keep in the forefront of our mind how we might be able to serve, reach out to our neighbors, not forgetting. And we want to say that because so much of life, it could just get, can just sort of the weeds of the busyness and the cares can kind of just creep in all around us. And then all of a sudden we're not thinking about how we might minister or reach out, and ready for an opportunity to reach out to our friends and our neighbors. And then the last thing that we're going to, the last aspect of our catechumenate is the triads, and this is really the backbone or the glue of the catechumenate. This is the triads are where so much of the good work is going to be fleshed out. Everybody that signs up for the catechumenate will be assigned in gender-specific groups of about 3 people. And you'll meet at a time, whatever works best for you, 3 people. And this can be in Zoom if you want to do that, online, and if you're not comfortable meeting in person. And a typical triad meeting will be about an hour to an hour and a half long. And I put a little structure in there of what, like the general structure of what they will be and what it will look like. There'll be time, you'll start out by catching up and praying, like, hey, how's it going? What's been going on? Like, you know, did you pass the test, or how was your daughter's surgery or something like that? You're catching up. And then there's some questions about your communion with God in Scripture. Again, remember, we're about communion with God in the Catechumenate, so it's going to be questions about your communion with God in Scripture. The Lectio Continua questions fit under that, and you're like, what in the world? We got more words to learn. It just simply means continual reading, like you're just reading the Bible continually. And so these questions will be like, where have you, like, you know, and you're reading in Nehemiah, what have you seen about who God is or what He does? Like, what have you noticed about that in that work? And there'll be questions that are around like your the Lectio Divina, or the divine reading as it's called, which is like a way of Scripture meditation and prayer. And that really goes deep. And so you might take a psalm, you know, might be assigned a psalm that you'll meditate on, and it'll be guided questions about what is it that God's highlighting in this psalm for you, and how does that impact, or where do you see that intersecting with your life? And so you'll share that with the group. You'll say, well, you know, when we did Psalm 42, he really highlighted this passage for me. And I think this is what was going on for why he highlighted this for me as I was reading this passage of Scripture. And so we're going to use this practice of Lectio Divina to meditate on Scripture. And then you might ask, like, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. It's not hard. It's fairly straightforward. But if you still have questions, you're like, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right and not doing it wrong or something like that. I've written out like instructions for how to do it. That is like what questions to ask. And just the process of reading the passage, ask this question. Read the passage again, ask this question. Read the passage again, ask this question. And so you're just sort of walking through and meditating and chewing on a passage of Scripture. I even made a video of myself doing it so you could see what it looks like to do, which, by the way, really awkward to like video yourself like studying the Bible and talk out loud what you're praying. So y'all can, you know, humor yourselves and go see what that looks like if you want. And then we're going to talk about so you'll take that time. Let's say Monday evening you took time to meditate on the assigned Scripture passage, and Wednesday is when you meet with your triad. So you'll meet with your triad, and then you'll share with your triad like those things that stood out to you that God highlighted in your life, or in the passage, and how that impacts your life. And so you see how this is all coming back to communion with God, fellowship with one another, and going out into the world and like serving. And so we're as we read Scripture, we're talking about these things with one another. And then we'll also talk about the next section there. One aspect of our triads will be questions about your communion with God in creation. And so we primarily experience God speaking to us in His Word, but God is continually speaking everywhere, always in His world. And so being aware and attentive to where have you seen God at work in your life? Where have you been aware of His presence, or of His blessing, or of His grace? Where have you been experiencing God in the everyday aspects of life? And so and that's again to cultivate our attentiveness to the work of God in all areas of our life and what that looks like. And you might say, I ain't got a clue, and that's fine too. And you just in your group say, I don't know, I don't know. And then you sort of work it out in your group, like, well, figure out like what does that look like for you, and how is God sort of relating to you? Because it might not look like the same for you as it does for someone else. So what does it look like for you? Then we'll be asking like, how have you blessed your neighbor? Or what did you go eat out, take your neighbor or your coworker for lunch, whatever that might be. How are you seeking to bless your neighbors? And then we'll have like one question usually to go. That would be a review from the catechesis time. And then you close in prayer. All right, so that's the structure, the general structure of the triads. They're going to look different, but that's just the general structure. And when it comes to triads, each group needs to keep what is shared in the group confidential. We need to keep those conversations confidential. One of the things that is freeing about being able to share is knowing that it's not going to end up somewhere where it doesn't belong. And so err on the side of not sharing information. So if you think, they probably won't care, if you have the hesitation about sharing in like what's been shared in your triad, if you have any kind of hesitation, don't. And if you do want to share because you think, it'd be encouraging to someone else, like just ask that person before you do. So keep things confidential. Another commitment you need to have. I changed this around a little bit, but if you want to be in a triad, you try to commit to missing no more than twice. If you think that you will miss more than twice, okay, you might say, I really want to be in a triad, but I know I'm going to be gone like these 4 weeks, and like there's no way, and like, okay, what I'll do is try to place you in a triad with a group that like of other people who also think they'll probably miss like 4 times or something, or 3, so that way the expectations aren't like this, 2 people, they're there every single time, and then there's the one person who's like, they can't be there but half the time. So rather than try and say like, no, you can't be in a triad, I just would place y'all in groups that like fit with what your commitment levels are, right? So that way we can maybe work out our expectations, and you also don't have to miss out on a triad. If you really want to do it, you just know that you can't commit to missing no more than twice. They're just going to function better that way. If those who really want to be there, have the ability to be there and not miss, then they don't have to miss out if other people can't commit. So we talked about conversations need to be confidential. No fixing. I put that. This is an important one. We like to help people, but in a group. What I mean by fixing is like is trying to like give a lot of advice to someone. I'd say if advice, you should give advice only in the group, only when someone asks for it. Like, hey, I would like it if you I need some help with this. What would you do? Or what should you think I should do? So we don't want to fix, we don't want to offer advice until like that person asks for it. And so we'll work on like listening and asking questions. And when we speak to the group more to like an individual. And that will help foster unity in the group. And not that advice is bad, because it's good. But just offer it when it's asked for. So no fixing. We're going to do it though, and realize that like you probably do it. I do it all the time. But try not to fix if someone's struggling with something. So getting into a triad. So how do we get into one? So again, I'll place you in a gender-specific triad, and then I'll pick one person to be a facilitator, and that job is not like have any responsibility except for, hey, we need to meet together. I found when I did the pilot program in March or April, I needed to just select one person that was like responsible to like call everybody and text everybody and say, hey, we need to meet and schedule a time. Because if I didn't, people were like, well, who's going to be setting the time and who's reaching out? So I'll just pick one of you as we assign triads, who's going to be the point person to say, let's get together and meet and set a time. So you'll place you in a group of about 3. And if you want to be in a triad with, let's say, that you want to be in a triad with this person and that person, and they also want you to want to be in a triad with you, that's fine. Just let me know who those people are and what what y'all want to do. I'm fine to place y'all in whatever groups you want to be in. Just ask that. But you can't tell me like I want to be in so-and-so's triad and not have talked to them, because then all the cool people are going to want to be in the cool person's triad, And I'm like, I can't do that. You have to kind of like have your own group and like come to me. There's no like slip in like, hey, I really, really, really want to be in Hayes's group. Come on, put me in. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. But Hayes, what? Not even a little? Not even a little, no. So you can come to me if you like and email me or let me know if you have people in mind that you want to be in a group with that you've spoken to. And that online form you'll see it was on the weekly newsletter. I can send out, and we'll send out it again. It's on the Facebook page. I'll text it out to everybody so that you can fill it out, and it goes through questions that might be helpful. So you might say to yourself, well, I just want to do. What if I just want to do the Sunday evening thing? I can't do the triads, but I just want to come on Sunday evenings. Can I do that? Sure, that's fine. Or if I just want to watch online and I don't want to be at the triad, I want to watch online. Yeah, of course. So you can do that, and you can just let me know, and if that way I can get you the information. So fill out the information. There's a number of options there for what you can sign up for when it comes to the catechumenate. All right, and it's important that you sign up because each week there are going to be different assignments for your triads. And so even if you're doing it by yourself, you're like, I'd still like to just sort of see what's going on. I just want to come on Sunday evening. Please just sign up. That way I know and I can get you information. You're not out of the loop. All right, let's see. So because each week there's going to be new assigned questions for your triads, I've created a Google Classroom. And some of you have already filled out the form. I've already invited you to that. If you need me to invite you again, just let me know. But this is basically communication's going to be important for us as we do this together. So you're going to be invited when you sign up to join the Google Classroom, and you're going to need a Gmail address for this. And if you do not have one, I will give you one. I just get one. I can create one for you. Just let me know if you have one. Send that to me. Sign up with the Gmail address. That way you can access the classroom. And again, don't let it hesitate you. I put my number on the sheet there, so you've got my cell phone number. Just call me or text me or email me. I'll help get you on if you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense to me. That's fine. And I'll try to even double up on some of the communication so that we'll get it in other places, maybe through text messages or emails or something like that. And so on the website, you're going to see like 3 main sections. One that says resources, and then another that says catechesis, and another that says triads. Under resources, you're going to have like a description about the catechumenate, stuff that we've talked about here. Description about the triads, so like those commitments that we talked about. The catechism. So the PDF of the catechism, if you do not want to purchase it, you can purchase this on Amazon. It's called To Be a Christian, an Anglican Catechism. If you don't want to purchase it, they provide a free PDF, and it's on the Google Classroom to download. The daily office scripture readings are also on there as a resource. How to do Lectio Divina, that's where you'll find me doing the awkward video of studying the Bible and meditating in Scripture. So those are the resources that are there. And then there's going to be like a section that's called catechesis, and this is going to be so let's just let you know what questions we're going to be covering this coming up Sunday in the catechism. So if you want to look over and read them before that Sunday, you could. And you could look over them, read them, and think, oh my goodness, what in the world does it mean? And wait a minute, why does it say Jesus descended to the dead and not descended to hell? Wait a minute, why are we saying that, and what does that even mean? And so maybe you're reading that beforehand, and then you're coming with questions. You could do that. You don't have to, but you could do that. So you'll see that section in the catechesis. And then there'll also be the third section there, which is going to be important to read, is the triads section. And this is where you'll see the questions and instructions for each triad, the things that you will be going over in your group, in your triad. So you're going to see, like, what is the passage that you're going to meditate on using Lectio Divina? What are the catechism question that you're going to review? For instance, you're going to see the very first thing. So again, not this week, but starting next week after Sunday, the very first thing that we're going to do in triads is sharing our spiritual autobiographies. And the description, which I put in your handout, is also in the triads portion in the Google Classroom. And your spiritual autobiography is your story. And I just kind of want to talk about that real quick, so you can be thinking about it as we look forward to next week. So the goal in your spiritual autobiography, starting you off, is to share your experience of your relationship with God with these other two in your group. This is not about getting it right. It's not about getting it right. Everybody has a story that God is writing in their life. Everybody has a story that He's writing, and it's yours. And it's yours, and we share these stories as best we can articulate them now. And sometimes in our life, we get a different perspective, and we see our stories from a different light, and we see, oh, wait a minute, like God really was at work at this point in my life. I just never saw it before. And so your spiritual autobiography isn't so much a story about like your conversion or how you came to faith, although that can be part of it. Like that, it would make sense that would be part of it. It might be part of it, but it's a broader kind of question than that. And so you'll see some of these questions that'll prompt you as you think about what your spiritual autobiography is. What is the story that God is writing in your life? So you might hear some questions like, how would you describe your conversion? Or summarize the most important elements of your own Christian faith, and why are they important to you? What are some of your patterns and practices of like your individual or corporate devotion? Again, we're sharing this with one another, and we're sharing our experience with God with one another. These aren't typically the conversations that you might have like at coffee hour, are they? This is an environment to be intentional about going deep with one another. What person or people have influenced you most in your life? Why? And then anything else you like to share, like that's significant in your story. So like just prompts to help you think about like your story, your relationship with God. What's it like? And so after next Sunday, you'll gather in your triads and you'll share your story. And this is also one of the reasons why confidentiality is so extremely important. Because so that we can share our stories, we can actually embrace the courage to be vulnerable, because that's one of our values at Christ the Redeemer. Okay, so now I've been talking a lot, and you may think, oh goodness, that's a lot. It's like way too time consuming. And it might feel like a lot, but because it's a little different than like simply your average Sunday school class. You know, it's an apprenticeship. It's about all of life. But when you boil it all down to what you're actually doing, it's not too much. So it's daily Bible reading, worshiping on Sundays, catechesis on Sunday evening, and a weekly triad meeting. That's it. There's no outside reading, there's no homework, there's no memorization. That is, unless you're doing it for confirmation. So some of you are being confirmed, and so there are some elements of memorization for y'all. Other people, you can memorize it if you like. Maybe your triad decides, let's memorize this together. But there's no memorization involved. And so those are the elements of like what it's going to look like. Okay. Questions? Thoughts? Clear as mud? Yeah? Yeah, good.
Are these going to be co-ed, or are we going to have males with males and females with females? What is it?
Gender specific, so like men with men, women with women. That works out well because it there's a freedom of openness that can come with gender specificity, and then also if you're married and you have kids, like it allows you to sort of like, you know, you can be in different groups and you can trade off watching the kids and stuff like that. You making fun of my gender specificity?
It's a good word.
Okay, yeah, so the form, here's the thing. If you want the form, text me and I'll just shoot you the thing. And my number, if you say, oh, I don't have the form and I want it, my number is right on this sheet. So like, just pull out your phones and shoot me a text real quick and say, I'd like the form, Luke. And then I will just send you the form. It's also in our weekly newsletter. It's on the Facebook group. And I can send out another text message that has a link to it as well to the entire church if that'd be helpful too. But if you want the form, just text me, ask me.
How long is the meeting on Sundays?
About an hour. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, one thought is that like you potentially like say, you know, I've got a pretty busy schedule. 1 hour is not too long. Maybe like my triad, like you could do like immediately following Sunday evening. You say, you know what, let's do it. We'll go to catechesis and then we're going to head straight over to the pavilion and the three of us are going to gather together and we're going to have our time together on Sunday evenings, which I think really could work out with some of the youth that are doing it. Like that might be best. I'm not sure. We can talk about that, parents and schedules and such, when that might be best. Although I know some of y'all are doing like online school, and so that might make it, you could do it during the week sometime, now that we've got the COVID stuff.
If you use the pavilion, make sure you sign up for it.
Yes, sign up for the pavilion if you want to use it.
Or in here and Luke, or there,
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could probably even like split up and have two in here if you wanted to do that right after. But you'd have to sign up for it. Sign up for it. That way we don't overlap.
Where do you sign up at?
Text me. Oh yeah. On the website. If you go to the website, there's like a link right at the bottom of every page where you can.
It's actually under resources now.
Oh, it's under resources now.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Will the youth in their triad, will they have an adult in the triad with them guiding them?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So will the youth have an adult in the triad with them? Yeah. So that's where I think there'd be 3 youth and 1 adult. So yes, that is, yeah. And their job is mostly just to be there as like a spiritual mentor in some ways. Like, and I could see, and I was telling Sydney this the other week, like, be flexible with what you do in the triad. You might actually say, like, you know what, let's do Lectio Divina together in our triad. Let's meditate on Psalm 130 this week together. And so so you spend some time doing that to get just the practice of what